often when we speak to someone about setting up informal learning, or they say, well, they have to do compliance, but why would they do this? So it seems like skills are a bit of a catalyst to why you need to do this, because it ties with all the scoring and weighting. So this is why you're doing the informal, because you're demonstrating the skills which allow you to keep your job. And that's what's on my mind. I'm Harold, and this is my Curious Corner. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Really excited to have Eran here with me. Eran and I have known each other for a long time, and he spanned across the world of L&D, as well as now founding his own startup. So really excited to dive a little bit deeper into how he thought about skills, how he approached it, one of the fastest growing technology companies, and also what he thinks about the state of the market today. So welcome to the podcast, Eran.
Thank you for hosting me, Harold.
So I wanted to dive a little bit into how you fell into the weird and wonderful world of L&D in the first place, Eran, and how you ended up being the product owner of learning technology at Booking.com. So excited to hear a little bit about your journey.
Actually, it's a very funny story. So when I was 23 years old, I had the privilege to be a manager of an after-school program in an elementary school. This is how I started. It was an after-school program that we had 140 kids. It was very interesting. This was my first click with the education system, actually. I really enjoyed it. I never thought that I would work in high tech in my life. But because that I work very close with the school itself and the management of the schools, I found out one day that they have a big issue with finding substitute teachers. So imagine that from, I wake up in the morning as a school principal, for example, and I found out that one of my teachers is sick. So what I'm doing, I sometimes you can reach to people in the street, right? Because I need someone to be in place. So we developed a startup company that I used to call Subkey back in the time. That is kind of Uber just for substitute teacher. We did it for a couple of years. It went really well. But fortunately, like most of the startups, as we know, we had the point that was needed to decommission the solution itself. But during this time, I learned a lot about the edtech industry itself. And for me, there it was the turning point. So after that, I had a chance to be LMS admin in a very big company, a solution called SuccessFactors Learning. Of course, very common one. And so I did it for 1 year. This is where I deep dived and I learned about LMS's work. And after that, I went to work in a consulting company and I led the learning technology stream. And I had the opportunity to accompany a very big enterprise, really from everything. So from banks and railways to an insurance company, but in the other hand, very high-tech companies like gaming companies and cybersecurities as well. So I really had the chance to taste from all the worlds of organizational learning, more traditional, more advanced. And after a couple of years as a consultant, I thought that I would like to do something that is more refreshing. And I went and I applied to a role of a product owner in Booking.com. And thanks God, I was accepted. And I worked in Booking.com for 2.5 years as the product owner, which means I was accountable for the learning technologies tech stack that exists in the organization. That was include mainly Docebo, of course, and alongside of it, 12 third-party content providers. Booking.com is a very good big company, as you know, 13,000 employees. The L&D itself is around 60 people. It's a very big department that supports really all the learning initiative from end to end. And I left Booking a half a year ago in order to open when you startup. The entrepreneurship is never end. It's just, reshaping itself.
Love to hear it, Eran, and excited to hear a little bit more about the startup. So you had lots of different experiences then, from working on substitute teacher technology to being in consulting. So as you're starting this role at Booking as the product owner of learning technology, how did those different experiences help you kind of get a bit of a fresh look at learning and development?
So during my time as a consultant, I had the opportunity to implement 7 different LMSs in the organization. And alongside of it, tens of digital courses platform, onboarding platform, really, of course, knowledge management systems, and so on, so on, so on. So I really had the chance to learn a lot from a different use cases, from a different L&Ds in the way that they operated, the way they are supporting the business. There are challenges as well from a methodology side and from a technology side. All of those experience really aid me, give me the chance to come to booking.com from a very experienced point of view. And sometimes, when in companies, you are very zoomed into your own challenges, and you sometimes struggling really much. And, sometimes you think that it's never happening in other places as well, and so on. You feel that you're a very silo. But I think that me joining to booking.com really gave kind of a refreshing way of seeing things. But I think that in general, the experience and the projects that I had a chance to lead and the companies really helped me.
I'm curious, before you get into booking here and looking at it as a consultant, you saw 7 LMS implementations. What were a couple of things that organizations did well when rolling out the technology? And what were some of the mistakes? So others listening to this hopefully don't make the same mistakes and can use the things that people did well.
I think, in my opinion, the mistake sometimes, technologies are very exciting. They are very rich in their capabilities. You can do so many things. Sometimes it's like to give a kid to enters to a candy shop that he can select everything, right? A free wallet. You just choose whatever you want, but it's not always what you really need now because you're very hungry. So, okay, the chocolate tastes well and looking well, but I'm very hungry. My needs is something else. So I think that one of the mistakes in implementation is to get too much excited about the functionalities and what we are capable to do. And sometimes it's moving you from the focus of what I actually need the system for. This is my tip, by the way, that when you're implementing learning technology, mainly LMS, so basically you need to focus about what do I need for tomorrow morning and not what I can do in the future and where the business need me the most. In most cases, and I think that, it's very common to organizations that are just starting their journey with LMSs, they are forgetting that the most important thing in many cases is the basic training. It's the mandatory, what we call the push learning. This is a very solid start. If you look at it, communication, you want to, in the end, to do the big change management, right? But think about that people so far, used to do a read and sign in order to complete their compliance. But now you're giving them an option to do it via videos, via Scrum packages as well. So there is a change management that you need to manage. If you're now will try to bring them more functionalities, ask the experts, so many things that you can do now in these days with LMS, it can confuse and it can make it tougher. So in the end, my tip here is focus where they need you the most, which means in which population and in which use cases, onboarding, compliance, and basic roles training most of the time. All the exciting things is not the first level in the building. It's more closer to the rooftop.
Yeah, I think this, let's call it shiny new object or shiny new toy phenomenon is very common, and with good reason. There's so many exciting things happening in the AI world, but I think the mindset needs to be, what business problems are we solving, and is AI going to help me solve said problem? In other words, will it make the boat go faster? Because if we're using AI as the default without knowing what we're solving for, you buy a lot of tech that looks cool, but actually isn't implemented properly. But it's a really interesting time in learning technology because AI has a lot of promises. So it's what do we want versus what does the business need? And that's an interesting balance to strike if you're looking at new learning technology. So some helpful tips and tricks there from you, Eran, from your consulting days. So let's say you're entering the role here at Booking. How are you starting to look at the ecosystem of learning tools, and what are some of the lessons that you have from entering that role and looking at it now, having left and started your own business?
Again, it's about the excitement and so on. But, sometimes because of the excitement, we forgot to do things very simple. We're talking about AI and so on, an automating thing. In my approach, I think that, same as, in airplanes, what did you have first, the automated pilot or the manual pilot, right? So first of all, you need to know how to fly the airplane before you're jumping to the automate and, just sitting in the journey. So what is my purpose is that to get to a place that, we are making sure that all the the foundation of the system is very solid and very strong. All the operation with the system, okay, is something that is very clear and very defined before we go in and do an automated thing.
So when you're at Booking and you're starting to look at the learning technology stack, what are some of the first steps you did? You mentioned the operations and ensuring some of those. And looking back at that period, what were some of the lessons that you learned having this product owner role?
So one of the things that it was really important for me to do back in the time, it's to consolidate the data. So in the end, in a big organization, corporate like Booking.com, you have so many team leaders, so many directors that they want to see what is the learners are doing. And in the end, they don't want to jump between systems. They want to see it in one place. So in the end, the point is to consolidate the data into a main system, which means in our cases is the LMS. In Booking.com, we have tens of digital courses, platforms that in the end, imagine that, a manager one time going to Coursera and the other day go to Udemy and Centra in order to understand that it's not really working like that. They don't have the time or even the reason to go between those systems. So in the end, they want to see it in one place. Then the second thing that this is something that was always across our mind, and it's really connected even from the consultant work, is how do you reduce the amount of the learning tools that exist in our world? And this is what we would try to do very hard from the first place. One more thing that when I joined to Booking, we started a skills-based organization transformation. That I really jumped into this project that is a very big project for us in Booking.com, is how you connecting all the skills dots into a one path. In my duty, my responsibility was to integrate our LMS to the whole skills journey story. So this is one of the main challenges and the main activities that we had back in the time. So how do you use skills in learning, using the content in the day-to-day for learners and so on and so on, and how it's connecting to their skills journey within the organization itself.
I want to double click and expand a little bit, Eran, on that skills topic. And just to set the stage for anyone who's joining this episode without necessarily having seen some of the previous ones. So I met this lady here called Corinne Paganos, who I've read this book, Building the Skills-Based Organization. And I've gone down the rabbit hole of learning from different practitioners. How did they think about the skills-based organization? What did they do? What did they focus? What did they not want to do as part of this process? So curious from your perspective, why did Booking want to become a skills-based organization in the first place? What was the main aims that they wanted to solve with the project?
So I think there was two reasons. First of all, is to support the employee career development, because in the end, as employees, we know that these days, in order to keep a high retention of employees in the organization, the employees need to feel that they are developing and grow, not just by the roles itself, even by their skills. And they need the guidance. They need the guidance because, you're getting to a place like Booking.com and sometimes you can feel lost, right? You have so much things to learn, but you need to create kind of a path. So this is the one thing. And I think the second reason was to do a better internal mobility between the roles and so on. Because let's say that, again, 13,000 employees. So I don't really know which option do I have and what I need to do in order to be fitted in a specific role. This is from an employee perspective, and even from an organization perspective, is kind of showing them all the skills and all the roles and all the employees that there exist in their places. So, there is always the vacancy, right? That you have within the role. Sometimes you're looking outside to recruit for a specific role, but actually you have the talented and the skills within the organization itself. So why to look outside on people that people don't really know Booking or your organization? You can do the internal mobility because there is someone in the other side of the organization that have the relevant experience and the relevant skills for this one. So it's really giving them the option to manage the workforce better.
So from that perspective, it sounds to me like you're trying to redefine the employee value proposition and provide more meaningful ways to develop your career at Booking and providing the mobility, or I guess the visibility of where am I and where can I grow. So it sounds like it doesn't necessarily come from L&D, but L&D still has a crucial part in it. So from your perspective, being the product owner of this stack, how did you go about consolidating data systems? How did you start to build that ecosystem of tools, so to say?
So first of all, we had one system that was a skills intelligence system that was kind of the father and the mother for all the skills in the organization. We was needed to integrate our LMS into this system in order to get all the skills taxonomy that is exist in the organization. That is a very breathing thing, right? It's a very dynamic. Can change very often. And based on that, and the other side is to do a very massive course curation process in order that for all the skills that we have, or at least most of the skills that we have in the organization, we will always have a content against it. And then when you know the employee and his skills, and you know the content and the skills that's part of that course, you can do the match. And yeah, this is it. And in general, the part of the learning in all the skills-based learning, let's say, as part of the skills-based organization, is about the theoretical learning. When we're looking on skills have two aspects. You have the theoretical and the practical. Let's give an example. Let's say that I want to gain skills of Python. Okay, I want to gain the Python skill. If I will go to the learning system and I will learn about how to do Python, it means that I gain the skill. The answer is no, because there is a practical. It's not just about the theoretical. So I learned about the theoretical, but now I need to go to the practical. The practical means that I need to do some projects, some tasks, in order to get the other part of the skill set, which means the practical. So I think part of the skills-based learning is to provide the theoretical part of the skills, but always you need to put the practical aspects as well.
So what you're mentioning there, Eran, is the verification of the skill. Okay, you may have learned something, but how do you prove that you have a set skill? Whether that's practical elements, let's say the theoretical Python, you need to submit an assignment with code snippets or do a video proving how you code. And the culmination of that, or the end result, is you've obtained set skill. And this is another fun little rabbit hole, because self-rating doesn't work because everyone's going to say they're great. So you need to mix that with peer rating or manager rating, and they all need to be weighted in specific ways. Without going too much into this, I had a very fun nerd out with Corrine and a lady called Sandra Loughlin about her work at EPAM doing a lot of this weighting and some of those aspects. But something else that came out of those discussions were skills transformation is inherently a data transformation. If your skills data is not clean when it interfaces with the learning system, it's not really going to work. So curious, when you're starting to look at this ecosystem, why did you build, or why did you buy this, let's say, OS for skills that you're using to kind of clean all the data sources? Did you see it as inherently a data problem as well?
I don't want to look on it as a problem. I think that you need to look on it more as a challenge, because in the end, those skills intelligence systems, in the end, it's giving you a benchmark of what happening worldwide. But let's say about even Python, okay? Let's use the same example. Python in booking.com is exactly the same Python in Google. I don't know. It's a question. In most cases, it's not the same thing, because in any skill, it's contain the abilities, right? The ability to do X, Y, Z in that skill, right? So, and in the skills, you have the proficiency level. Proficiency level in the Python is the same way that you're looking at it in Google and Booking. It's two other things. So everything, all the localization, let's call it, or the personalization in the organization itself, it is a challenge. It's not a problem. And it means that the organization need to invest a lot of resources in order to ask them question, what is main skills in our organization? And it takes time. And if you will, as much that you will depend on the different resources without doing this, fine-tuning the tailor-made skills in your organization, it's made all the courses, for example, that you would like to present them less accurate as well. So I think everything started from then, and the rest is the implication of it. Sorry.
So it starts by, and let's call it a challenge as opposed to a problem. A challenge assumes it's something you can work on, which is very much the case here. If you fix the data problem, you fix the accuracy of the skill, the data that moves into the learning system, and ultimately you could move back. So wherever you choose based on your own business and situation is the best to host the skills. I don't have a strong view on where necessarily this needs to live, but it needs to be clean and it needs to interface well with other systems. So coming back to your skills intelligence platform and how it was interfacing with the learning system, what did that integration look like and how did that help the skills verification or inference angle here?
The interfaces that we created between the skills intelligence system to our LMS, there was three main interfaces. The first one is the skills taxonomy, right? We need to, the same skills that are living over there in the skills intelligent will be the same skills that are exist in our LMS. The second one to do the skills to courses. So in the end, even that in our LMSs could do the matching between the skills within the courses itself, you need the system, the owner of the skills will know exactly which skills are tagged to which courses as well. And the third one was skills to users. So we took the users, each profile, the user profile, that actually it's managed as well in the skills intelligence. And we created these interfaces with our LMSs in order that in the end we can connect all the dots and do a learning recommendation. Again, I think that one of the challenges that we face back in the time is less about the recommendation, about the current, right? I know the current. I know that Eran is, a product owner. I know that he has 5 skills. The challenge is about the acquisition. So to create the mechanism, what Eran need to do in order to gain, the next proficiency level and grow with it, right? So how many learning you need to do, right? Not just about which training it can do, how much in calculation play the game. And we said about tasks, right? We said about the day-to-day thing, how many projects you need to do, how many tags, so on. And all the practical aspects of the training itself in order that we will consider that he now gained the first proficiency level of beginner, and he now moved to, intermediate or advanced. So I think this was one of the main challenges. Yeah.
So let me take that and expand a little bit upon it, Eran. So one of the things I'm very passionate about, and I've had some of these chats in previous episodes here, is skills transformation might be led by HR, but we're solving business problems. And you need to work closely with business leaders to define some of these things. So hypothetically, if let's say HR set the point system for tasks and skills and projects and all of these things, what ends up happening is if that's done wrong, you might promote people who aren't ready and you think you're solving something. And in reality, you're creating yourself a new reskilling problem because you're going to have a bunch of managers who are promoted who aren't ready because they don't have the right skills. So HR needs to lead on it with L&D support, but you need the business leaders to define what skills do I need for this role, and then making sure that the points match some of those things. As an example, if, let's say it's 5 points. If I'm becoming a junior to a senior developer, I need those 5 points to be pretty clear what I need to do. It's very different to promote a developer versus a sales leader. So those leaders need to have an active voice and how those things are set up. So this comes back to skills transformation being a stakeholder change management project as well as L&D and HR's role. So how did you work collaboratively with business leaders to define some of these things?
You remember we spoke about the point in when we said about implementing LMS that, again, being the places that they need you the most in the first place. So I think here is the same thing. So again, in order to do a very successful project, as we said, that the skills transformation is a hand of a project to manage, you need to start small. And start small, starting with the places that you know that those skills, fast-moving skills, those changes, there is a lot of recruiting and so on and so on. This is starting with them, okay? So this is what we did. We went to the business itself. We gather all the departments and the divisions that need those skills and manage those skills very fast. And we connect them to the project, and we gave them the option to validate our project and our progress. Mainly, we did it with validate the skills that we are getting, because in the end, sometimes what we see as is the most important thing at the moment, right? Learning skills, all those kind of things. The business have a different priorities, and you need them to be supportive. You want to bring them to the team. You don't want to force them. If now I will tell a deal manager, I need you to tell me what is the skills that you have in the create for me a list, break it all the roles and the skills. You lost him. So you needed a collaboration. And in order to create those collaboration, so you can send him the first draft. This is what we found out. Tell me what happened in your team. Okay. This skill is relevant for you. This skill is not relevant for you. And so on and so on and so on. Again, the message is find where they need you the most. Okay. Don't start with all the organization. The whole organization, as you say by yourself, it's a very tricky because the turning point from a very successful to a failure, it's very, very short. So this is why you need to be very smart in that and really understanding from them, giving them the skills itself, ask them to validate it, get their collaboration, and from there grow. Learn. There is a lot of learning from these processes as well. So before you're going to a full deployment, start small.
Reiterate and do pilots and things of that nature. I would argue find the area of the business that needs this the most, but also the one where leaders are most bought in. Because if you're saying, hypothetically, we're a mess on the manufacturing side of the business and we really need to do this, and the leaders, they don't want people learning at all. They're saying, if you're learning, you're not making stuff, and that hurts our bottom line. So I don't want you to learn. I don't want you to do this. You have this friction, and I'm not saying you couldn't get through it, but I would say pick the area of the business that needs this with the leaders who are most likely to support it. Because that again comes back to change management, right? If you prove, oh, this worked for John or this worked for Daisy, then the others buy into it. So I guess what we're saying is it's not a one size fits all. It's a series of sprints that you have to go through when you're taking on skills transformation. From your perspective there, were there any particular examples of leaders you collaborated well with as you went on this transformation journey? Not necessarily naming names, but types of roles or examples of how you worked on some of this change management things?
I think it's a very tricky one because I think that it's really dependent on the persona, not just about the role or the department or the division or the domain, let's say. Because in the end, you have more, as you said, there is a big paradox here, right? Because on one hand, as much that you are investing more in your growth, it means that you less working on the day-to-day thing that you've been hired for. But why it's a paradox? Because we know that in the end, any organization don't want to replace employee in a very fast time. They want people to stay longer. They want a higher retention in the organization. So they know that they need to invest in their growth as well. But, to invest in their growth, it means that they need their support as well. So I think it's hard for me to tell you on a specific person or a specific role because we had so many different type of personalities, even in places that, potentially think that this role will be more collaborated. We found out that there are less collaborated, but in places that we found out that we thought that it will be less collaborated, we find more collaboration. So it's very hard to say in this case.
I guess that's also a lesson in don't assume, find data, prove, and reiterate, because you might think, well, this isn't going to resonate with this group for whatever reasons or misconceptions or things we assume. And in reality, that's not the case. So find data and reiterate throughout. Speaking of data, Eran, you mentioned the skills intelligence tool. Where would you measure some of the skills transformation areas? Did you have your own data warehouses or data visualization tools? Think Power BIs. Did you do this in HR systems, learning systems? Talk to me a little bit about the data aspects and how you proved the success of this.
So there is multiple resources that in the end been connected. So for example, the HRIS, for example, you're doing it for record, right? You want to consolidate all the employee information into their HR system, most likely. But we did use some BI tools in order to create those insights and analyze the skills and what they are doing. Think about the skills intelligence kind of a layer that integrated to those BI and those HR. So everything goes through there into each one of those resources.
And from that perspective, what were some of the challenges working with skills data? Because again, we said it's a lot of different data sources. It can be hard to measure it objectively because it's a subjective discipline a lot of the time, meaning verification and things of that nature. So how did you manage that data side and what challenges did you overcome?
It's one of the biggest challenges in creating a skills-based organization, because in the end, think about, let's take three systems. Okay. One system is the skills intelligence. The second one is LMS. The third one is a TMP, talent marketplace. Each one of those systems have their own logic. They have their own approach for skills, which means could be that in the skills intelligence system, they are managing three levels of proficiency skills. In your LMS, they actually see a skill as a 4 proficiency level, and the TMP see it as a 5. So who is right and who is wrong? And how you're doing all those kind of, creating this correlation between the systems and the way that you look at things is a huge challenge. The way to approach it is really to do kind of pivoting, converting, and so on, that in order to say that we have one system that this is the father and the mother, right? The skills intelligence, they are the leaders. All the other systems need to follow. So if, for example, in the LMS, I'm in level 2, consider it as level, 1 or 3 in the skills intelligence, because it's equivalent to what is happening over there. It's a hell of a thing. This is why it's bringing us to the same place. It's not just about how you're doing the change management that is a big piece of this project. Is a lot of challenges with managing the data and the correlation between the system, because it's need to be part of the story.
One of the things I chatted to Sandra about from EPAM was, how do you prove the verification from, let's say, what you complete in a learning system versus what you saw around the web? You looked at a LinkedIn article, you went to a conference. The way they're approaching it, and recommend everyone to check out that episode, is it's actually hosted in the data intelligence tool. So let's say the Power BI or whatever operating system they're having, and they're fueling all that info in there. Because what they're saying is, you might learn in the learning platform, or you might go to a conference, or you might look at LinkedIn articles, or you might host a webinar. So if skills is only contained in the learning system, we're losing a lot of the skills of what people are doing. But what you're saying as well, Eran, is very true. If a talent acquisition system has 2 skills proficiencies, the LMS has 4, talent marketplace has 5, it's a whole mess. It needs to be a standardized unit. And again, this is where it's going into the measurement, it's going into those points we mentioned, and the difference between self-rating versus peer rating versus manager rating. So it's a fun rabbit hole, to put it mildly. But let's transition a little bit from booking. And I know that you're very passionate about capturing, let's say, learning signals or learning that happens outside of corporate systems as well. It's one of the reasons that you're looking to have your own startup. So leaving the corporate world and now looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes, what are some of the challenges you're aiming to solve with the new startup?
Most of the time, the L&D trying really to support the business as much as they can. But in the end, the organization have a different priority. So, for example, L&D need to really jump around between all the compliance courses and onboarding. Think about how many programs like DEI and culture and so on. And of course, the facilitation, they are very really overload. So many things that they need to do. And unfortunately, who fall in between the chairs is the business. But the business is always in their eyes. It's very, very important for the L&D to support the business. So let's take an example. Let's say that I am a team leader of a sales team, okay, or customer support. And I know that my team have really struggling, really hard for them to handle objections. And me as a team leader, because it's very crucial, right? Sales or customer support, I really want to educate them. So I want to give them a course, right? I want to create for them a course. So what the first thing that I will do, I will go to my L&D. Dear L&D, I need you to help me. I need you to curate for me a course for my team. But unfortunately, as we say, because the L&D is very overloaded, and thinking of corporates that those kind of requests can come very oftenly, it's very hard for them to support each one of those individuals. So what we're finding in general, that most of the courses is more one size fits all, right? Because in the end, it's really hard to aim to the specific individual employee in the organization with his experience. So it's more one size fits all, but it can take a very long time as well. Because let's say, as we said, the L&D have different priorities. So what happened is that in a good scenario, what will happen is that They will help you. They will have the resources, and they will assign for you a project manager, an instructional design, in order to do all the ADDIE model, right? To analyze it with you, to design, develop with you, of course, to implement to the system and then evaluate. All of this ping pong, in a good cases, can take between 2 or 4 weeks. But in our bad cases, it can take even 18 weeks. But I need this course now, right? I told you, as we said, objection handling, guys, we lose money, the business lose money. That scenario, what happened is that the L&D is sending them the digital courses that they have as an offer. So it's not coming from the LMS itself. It will come from Coursera, Udemy, or so on and so on and so on. And then what we are seeing in most time, because of Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, and so on, our most system that is a macro learning and less micro learning. It's not something very specific, fast-moving skills or fast-moving learning. It's more for certification based. We see that one of the struggles that the organization found is the completion rate of those courses. These vendors are very low. So in a global point of view, we know that to say that the completion rate in those vendors is between 5 to 15%. That is very low, and they are very expensive. And this is something that is really hard to justify. So again, there is the discussion between ROI or ROV, right? So it's not just about the completion, it's about the giving them the option. But still, we know those systems is a one size fits all. So I think that this is one of the challenges, the main challenges that organizations are having. And this is exactly what we are solving today.
I'll touch on that in a second, just to kind of explain for people who are hearing what you're saying and might be like, "Oh, this is interesting. I didn't really know what's going on here." So let's say the production line or the supply chain of a learning and development team is request comes in, we're approved or rejected. Let's say it's approved. Let's say it's 4 or 6 or 8 weeks, depending on that outcome. The underlying principle throughout that whole ordeal is assuming L&D holds the keys. What we're seeing a lot of now with the emergence of AI is you can give the keys to said business leader or SME, and they can run that supply chain of course production on their own. So that might be within the learning system. They want to use AI to build meaningful content in way less time than 6 to 8 weeks. We're talking, hours, if not less than hours. So that's an area where this is being disrupted. The other side is on learning libraries, more thoughtful curation, or allowing learners the ability to search content in more meaningful ways, or things like virtual coaching that are adding new ways to practice. I think the approach you've taken, though, Eran, is, and I can attest to this myself, everyone learns from the likes of YouTube or other systems. I'm a big Perplexity Comet user, and I use Perplexity a lot to find specific information. So how did you take a very common platform like YouTube and turn that more into richer experiences?
As we know, YouTube is one of, if not the most usage learning system in the world. So again, in one of my projects that I had the chance to lead, we was needed to reduce the amount of the third-party content providers that we have, and really to a minimum 1, 2, 3, no more than that. And when we started this exercise, we asked the business, we asked them the question, okay, we see a very low completion rate, right? Please tell us, so if you need a visual learning, so where do you learn? And they told us YouTube. What we found out is that in the end, YouTube is the most informal learning system in the world, which means if I need to learn something now, fast-moving learning, I will go to YouTube. Just a little bit to understand by numbers, Google found out several years ago that out of 2.5 billion active users that YouTube has in a month, 70% of them using YouTube to learn something new. We all of us learning something from YouTube.
I love YouTube.
Yeah, thanks to YouTube. What we are doing is in the end making the YouTube as something that is a very informal tool to something that is more formal learning tool, which means we make it from a video that is a very passive that you need to watch, first of all, to search, right? Until let's say I want to learn now, objection handling, right? It will give me thousands of options. What we are doing in the end by writing a one prompt, our system will do the rest for you. So in minutes, it's filter all this content that are out there on YouTube and giving you what we found as the most relevant video, but not as a standalone video, as a holistic course. So if you have a 10 minutes to learn, for example, we will create for you a micro learning that is taking a 10 minutes that is including our objectives and including the videos that are coming from YouTube. And we're adding more elements that is like, in order to test yourself and see that you actually have all the tools in order to really absorb the knowledge, not just sitting and watching and getting what you're getting. So it's including the quizzes and it's including the notes and even the option to interact with the video itself to really do a deep learning process.
What I love from what you're sharing, Eran, is so we've talked about your journey from, looking at substitute teachers to consulting to working for one of the quickest technology companies in the world. And you saw real problems and you're trying to build technology to solve real problems for managers. Because whether you're building your own courses inside of the learning system using AI as a quicker way to manage the supply chain, or you're doing curation and different things from YouTube here, these are real challenges, right? Learning leaders need to find ways to architect those experiences, because the pipeline of 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, hey, I have a need, here's a course 8 weeks later, that doesn't work in the AI era. So whether the solution is the curated content you have via YouTube, or it's learning in the flow of work, or agent interfaces, or digital adoption platforms, think browser extensions, whatever it is, L&D needs to architect these experiences where people are and build, let's say, user-first learning programs. Because the reality is, as we know, that if the program isn't built with learners in mind, we're just going to go to YouTube or OpenAI Atlas or somewhere else. So from that perspective, the bar is higher than it's ever been. But that also makes it exciting with some technology that you're looking at that actually solves real issues for end users.
Absolutely. And I think, first of all, always in the L&D world, we're talking about the difference between push and pull in learning. So push, it's a mandatory, right? You like the content, you don't like the content, we will try to do the best in order that it will fit most of the employees in the organization, but it's not tailor-made, it's not personalized. Because who's in the central? The organization. This is about push, right? The organization's first. But about pull, it's about the employee, it's about the individual. And each one of us have a different way of learn, and we have a different preference, and we have a different time. So in the end, this is making it one of the biggest challenges to organization, because in the end, if an employee now using ChatGPT or if they now using YouTube, they don't have any option to track or measure. This is exactly what I mentioned, like making it from informal to more formal. When you are putting it in the experience of a learning system, a system that we develop, you're giving the opportunity for the team leaders, for the L&D, to actually track and measure the employee, which learning they're doing in their day-to-day. And we see it as something that is a very important, right? We're talking about ROI that in the end need to be measured. And it's something that is a very useful for the team leaders and the individuals as well. So, yeah.
So let's think, Eran, a little bit. We both know the 70-20-10 methodology or principle. 70% of learning happens, informally and socially, and 10% is actually formal learning. So one of the things that I think is happening in the market right now is we have what we call an invisible learning crisis. And what I mean by that is learning happens outside of learning systems, and we don't have a way of measuring it. And crucially, we don't have a way of taking those signals and adding that into personalization for learners. So one of the ways you've come up with is this YouTube curation style. I also see for learning vendors the ability to take some of these signals, mix that, and let's say it's chatbots or LLMs plugged into learning systems, and drive a more thoughtful and contextual learning experience via, as we said, browser extensions, other tools embedded inside MS Teams, you name it. Meet your learners where they are, create frictionless experiences, and make sure it's contextual. Because that's the problem that I think you're trying to solve here, right? It's contextual learning at point of need or just in time.
Absolutely. Let's think about the context and the just-in-time learning. Let's say that now I'm working in a team that so far used to manage their projects in waterfall. Okay. But now I started in a new project that we are actually doing it in Agile. So we have the Scrum Master and we have everything. But in me as an individual, I never worked in Agile. I joined not in the beginning of the project. I joined a few weeks after. Who's going to teach me? Where do I go? And again, I will ask the L&D to provide me that. Again, we say they are overloaded. This is those kind of things that in the end, though, as you said, the 70%, this is the most of the learning that happening today. Again, we gave the example about the team leader as well, right? What I am doing now, if I need to my team to be educated on something tomorrow, not in 2 weeks from now, those kind of things. Even think about it in the case, it's happened to everyone. I had a session last week with a VP that he told me, I doing now for my first time a design workshop, and I never did it in my life. So, those kind of learning that has happened today. And another use case is that think about, again, the software, the SaaS world is moving so fast. Any tool now, every other day, have a new release. How much time it takes to Coursera and Udemy to develop those content and how much faster is going to YouTube and being shared by SMEs and so on. Those kind of things. So this is why I'm saying, and again, it's not about the blaming. No one is blaming someone, but I think that what is the AI world now, and let's call it 2025 and so on, this area gave us is really the opportunity to look on those systems a little bit different. Because let's not forget that the LMSs, the LMSs, the beginning of the LMSs, starting from as a learning management system, that their whole purpose is to do the push learning, the learning that is important for the organization. As we said, the mandatory, the core fundamental training that exists for the organization in order that the employee will able to function in his work. But the other thing, all the LXPs and so on, with all the respect, I still look on the challenges that the employees are facing in the day-to-day. Unfortunately, not the LMSs and not the LXPs are covering them, and they're trying the best. One of the projects that I had the chance to do with one of my previous clients is to create a course library. We map all the skills, we map all the subjects, we import more than 4,000 courses. We did a big bang, a lot of communication that we did around, and we celebrated it. We thought it's a big thing, but in the end, the completion rate was really low. And where did they go? The places that there are, like, we know that it's very easy and very fast for them to consume. So I really think that what will happen from now on is that, again, the LMS's word will more be focused on the pure fundamental training, and it's okay. It's a lot. It's a hell of a thing. And give the business, giving them the autonomy to create for them their own learning because they know more than us.
So I'll give you a bit of a silly metaphor, but I think it encapsulates this well, Eran. So just bear with me here. So let's imagine that L&D is running a hotel. They're going in and they're opening the room and they're telling a leader, you can go into this room when I'm opening the key for you. Now we're moving into a world where they're giving out the keys rather than I have to do everything. We're giving the keys, the autonomy that you can do this in different ways. Your learners like to go from YouTube. Let's find a way to curate that. People are living in MS Teams. Let's find a way to bring the learning system to MS Teams. I think the premise that everyone is going to go into another tool that's not contextual, arguably it's never worked, but it's not going to work in the 2025 era because the bar is I can go to ChatGPT, Perplexity, YouTube, and I can do this better on my own. So one of the things that learning vendors need to figure out, and I think learning teams need to, see the art of the possible, is how do you reimagine the ecosystem with all of those things? From my perspective, figure out where learners live and figure out how you bring learning experiences that are contextual, that are plugged into what they do, plugging in LLMs or otherwise, and finding that where learners are. I think that's the key thing. So if we're thinking about, again, it could be headless interfaces, it could be embedded inside of MS Teams, browser extensions. You mentioned like of Udemy, you see that with Coursera, with Power Apps. You see so many different ways of reimagining how people learn. But the premise is the supply chain of 6 to 8 weeks to build a course. I don't think that's going to get there anymore. And the notion that I'm going to go in a system that's not contextual, I'm not going to engage with it, which is why the completion rate is what you mentioned with those starting percentages there. So I think where we're getting to, Eran, is it's time to rethink the ecosystem.
Absolutely. So it's kind of understanding that the L&D is accountable, but is not responsible for the just-in-time learning.
Exactly. So very exciting to see how the startup takes shape and how you're solving this, and encourage everyone listening to this to think of your end users. Think about how you can create experiences that are leveraging the best of AI and providing that context, but still keep the human touch. There's very much still a place for human connection. We can't just lose that and say, oh, we're going to go all avatars and have no human touch anymore. Arguably, AI provides us with the ability to have practice and ways we can find more contextual learning, but we need to keep that human element alive. So the best L&D teams, I think, solve experiences where learners are, and they mix the best of AI and that human connection, because people are craving human connection, so we can't just let it go either. So what do you think the successful teams of the future will do, Eran?
We live in a time that the system world is floating to the employees. It's overwhelming the employees. Too many systems. If you was looking on my Octane booking.com, for example, you was shocked how many systems the organization got. And I think the key here is to reduce the amount of the front end that you need to go. So in the end, when we're talking about learning solutions, we talked a lot about when we spoke about skills, right? So not just the theoretical, provide the practical as well, but in one place, not split the experience. So I think that those learning solutions need to be way more holistic and more contextual, right? Related to what your day-to-day, your challenges. So I think this is where we go. And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that organization really facing at the moment, because again, technology is exciting, and every other day there is a vendor that is raising and it is with a very exciting solution. So I think in the end, the magic is to reduce the amount of the system that the employees need to interact with in their day-to-day, and especially in learning in general in this world. I think less is more, which means don't buy 12, 14, 15 options in places to learn. Try to reduce it.
So focusing on where learners are and reducing the system fatigue, it's a real thing, right? If you have 20 different HR tech products, no one's going to go in and interact with all of them. Reduce the noise, and I would say find more meaningful ways of doing push that's more contextual and relevant, and find pull and mix it with the wider operating system for the employees. Mix it with LLMs, mix it with curation, make it more intelligent. So, for example, if we think of an AI coach, it's bi-directional. I can react and I can prompt, hey, find me some content. But it also analyzes what I do in the workplace, and it gives me suggestion based on who I am and what I'm interacting with. Curious Corner takeaways. I think the combination of learning experiences in the flow plus the context of pull, I think those two key ingredients allow for a more human and enriched learning experience overall.
Absolutely. And I think that in general, with all the excitement about AI and so on, I think humanity is not leaving the world. And I think to learn from people that it's not a bot, and, real SMEs with their experience and so on, is something that will stay, and something that is hold more water than actually a bot that can overwhelm you sometimes with the information, even if it look very pretty.
Yeah, we'll crave those human experiences and collaboration with others. So one thing is for certain, Eran, it will be a fun world to follow. There's so much going on, and very excited to follow your journey with the startup as well. Thank you so much for wanting to join the podcast, and excited to explore the future of learning with you.
Thank you very much for the time. Speak soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much. So that's it for this conversation. I'm going to keep going down rabbit holes as we explore the weird and wonderful world of learning and development. If you want my full wrap up and takeaways, subscribe to my newsletter where I'll connect all the dots.